So, the Palestinian American comedian Sammy Obeid was riffing on prejudice in American culture and how it manifests. And this is what he said. There was a poll that showed that 56% of Americans uh, believe that we should get rid of Arabic numerals. Um, and he said, well, how can you get rid of nine? How can you never forget 9/11 if you get rid of 9 and 11? So he continued, if you didn't get that joke, it's because our educational system has failed you and you weren't taught that our numbering system is called Arabic numerals, which itself is likely a misnomer because it was probably developed in India. But just think of people answering a question they don't understand. Let's say you don't know that Arabic numerals are what our numbering system is called, and someone asks you if we should get rid of Arabic numerals. Do you just say yes because they are Arabic when you don't even know what is being talked about? You could choose no opinion, which 15% of responders did. So anyway, if you want to hear his whole riff on this, he says it much better than I do. It's on YouTube. Just search for Sammy Obeid, S-A-M-M-Y, and then Obeid is O-B-E-I-D. He's a Palestinian American comedian. He has a lot of stuff on YouTube that's pretty good. Anyway, having opinions about things we know nothing about has always been a venerable American tradition. But lately, some people have gone far beyond this traditional pastime and have developed quite a skill for storytelling. Remember when asking questions and doing your own research were unequivocally good things? Not anymore, because some people have confused those things with storytelling. And some of these people should have become science fiction and fantasy writers because their stories are quite fantastical. It seems to have started with QAnon back in 2017, or possibly some lesser anons in 2016. And now some people believe that Democrats or somebody is controlling the weather to produce hurricanes and have guided them through Republican voting districts in the South. And this after years of saying that humans could never affect the climate. These conspiracy theories get more and more absurd. I just learned of one that's really nuts. Apparently, it goes back to 2016 or 2017, but I just found out about it. And it's so nuts that even to be able to talk about it, I had to spend several hours researching it, which was fun. And I'm still not sure I got it straight because it doesn't really make sense. But it seems to go something like this. About 100 years ago, there was a mud flood or a global heating or something that destroyed a worldwide empire called Tartaria. Have any of you heard of this? Nobody. Well, you're in for a story. So it destroyed this worldwide empire called Tartaria. And by worldwide, I mean stretching from Asia to North America. So where we are was part of this empire 100 years ago. 100 years ago. And all the old buildings that we see from that era, 100 years or more, were actually built by the Tartarians, perhaps centuries ago or even thousands of years ago. And the Tartarians had a society and culture superior to ours. And they are also sometimes said to have been fair-skinned, blue-eyed people. So you see where this is going. So the society that we see around us is just about 100 years old. The grand society of Tartaria is hidden, literally buried under mud, except some of the buildings that still survive. As one conspiracy theorist put it, the same people that built the Capitol in Washington built the pyramids in Egypt. Let that sink in. So according to this theory, we have been lied to about the origins of our current society, which happens to be multicultural and multi-ethnic, by the way. And we've been lied to, and the original society is literally buried under the foundations of the current one, with some exceptions. And these exceptions are the revealing clues. So, oh, that's supposed to be the title slide. Can you read that? I don't know. Yeah, anyway, so doesn't matter. That's the Bible also talks about hidden things that are being revealed. Jesus in Matthew 13:35, which comes right after the parable of the sower that was read, Jesus says, I will proclaim things hidden since the foundation of the world, which is the title of the sermon. I will proclaim things hidden since the foundation of the world. Now, in that chapter, Jesus talks about hidden things, which are the secrets of the kingdom of heaven. That was part of what was read. These are the secrets of liberation in God's new society that he calls the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of God. The secrets, the hidden things are the good news. But Rene Girard, who many of you may know, is Lisa here? Lisa Finley? She's in CIW. Okay, yeah. I know several of you are big Rene Girard fans, but Rene Girard, the famous philosophical anthropologist, wrote a book back in 1978 called Things Hidden Since the Foundation of the World, based on that text, Matthew 13:35. And he says that the things hidden that are being revealed by Jesus in Matthew are the violent underpinnings, the violent foundations of human society. Now, I'm not going to get into his whole theory, but I want to say this. Even though I don't think his exegesis of Matthew 13:35 is correct, I do find his overall thesis convincing, or at least helpful, insofar as what he says about society. That society is often, and I think he would say always, that society is often built on violence, and I would add oppression, but he, I think, specifically rejected that part. He just talks about this primordial violence that undergirds human society. The Bible also talks about society built on violence. The things hidden, the secrets that Jesus talks about, is the good news of liberation, not the violent underpinnings of society. Nevertheless, violence and oppression are implied. There is implied in the gospel and also in the Hebrew prophets a critical unveiling of the world order under imperial rule, a revealing of hidden things. Both the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation caricature the empires that ruled in that part of the world as very strange looking beasts. That is coded language that implies an unveiling through word imagery. The word imagery reveals the nature of the empires as beast-like. Also, when Jesus debates the upper class scribes and Pharisees, he reveals or exposes their interpretation of the law as one that benefits their class. This is an unveiling of power dynamics, class dynamics. A basic foundational structure of society is being revealed. In addition to that, the Gospel of Matthew and the Hebrew prophets use the image of a house to speak of a society or nation, such as when Israel is called the house of Jacob. And this house can be said to be built on violence and oppression. And this is where I need Jax first again. So Jax is going to come back. Can you give me the Jeremiah 22 slide? There you go. Should say Jeremiah 22, but. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I must have emailed you the wrong one or something. That's not it. All right. But you got the right one right there. So he'll read it.
Jeremiah 22, verse 13 through 14. Woe to him who builds his house by unrighteousness and his upper rooms by injustice, who makes his neighbors work for nothing and does not give them their wages, who says, I will build myself a spacious house with large upper rooms, and who cuts out windows for it, paneling it with cedar and painting it with vermilion.
Fortunately, he's a really good reader. That's great. Jude, can you give me the Micah slide? That's right. Good.
Hear this, you rulers of the house of Jacob, and chiefs of the house of Israel, who abhor justice and pervert all equity, who build Zion with blood and Jerusalem with wrong.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. So the house, the nation, is built on violence and oppression. And it's not just Zion, of course. If these same prophets were writing today, they would say the same thing about the United States. There are things hidden beneath our foundations, beneath the foundations of our house that need to be revealed. And it's not a lily white society that built great buildings. That's not what needs to be revealed, but rather the foundations of genocide and slavery and Jim Crow and the undermining of democracy around the world for corporate profits. These are the things that need to be revealed. But we live in strange times. We used to struggle to reveal the hidden things, the hidden violence and oppression on which our society was built. Now we struggle against conspiracy theories. We struggle to name the actual hidden things and distinguish them from the fake hidden things. There was no lily white superior culture that lasted thousands of years until just around 100 years ago. There was, though, not that long ago, around that time, a Jim Crow society that was built on racism, redlining and exclusionary zoning, segregated neighborhoods. And we can still see the remnants because they aren't old ornate buildings. They are the segregated neighborhoods, the exclusionary zoning that is still with us. The legacy of past housing policy is also still with us in the form of inherited wealth passed down through families. At one point, 60% of homes in Pasadena had racial covenants on them, which required that they be sold only to white people. So it was much easier for white families to own homes. And it was also easier for them to get either government or private loans from banks to buy a house due to redlining. So they could accumulate wealth through home ownership and pass that wealth down through generations. The wealth gap is still with us. According to the Pew Research Center, in 2021, the typical white household had 9.2 times as much wealth as the typical black household. 9.2 times as much wealth. Single-family zoning began in Berkeley, California, of all places, in 1916 as part of a wider strategy to keep people of color out of a white neighborhood. That's how it began. Then this strategy spread like wildfire across the US as a segregationist strategy. Single-family zoning still covers more than 70% of most US cities, including 70% of Pasadena and 70% of Los Angeles, and most of the towns around here. Some of the towns it's higher, it's like 90%. These are the geographical foundations of our society. These are the foundations of our house. And they are still here for us to see, as Jesus said, if we have eyes to see and ears to hear. The genocide in North America is largely over, although there is still some land theft going on by oil and mining interests. But the genocide is in full swing in Palestine, and the bombs and bullets are coming from the West, especially the United States. The secret of the kingdom of heaven, the secret of God's new society, is that we can overturn these things. We can reorder our society, and we can stop the genocide. But we've got to start talking about these things. We cannot be silent. Silence allows them to continue. We've got to talk about these things widely, and we've got to spread the message that we have the power to change things. God's new society is within us and among us, and its secrets are within us and among us. As Jesus says in Matthew 10, we've got to shout what's inside of us. We've got to shout what we have heard from the rooftops. By talking with people and spreading the message of the good news, we grow the movement for liberation and justice. And that's the only way we're going to change things. That's what the parable of the sower, the parable of the soils, or whatever we're calling it today, that's what the parable of the sower is about. Spreading the message, spreading the secrets of the good news. Not everyone we talk to will join the movement, but we've got to do it, and our efforts, according to the parable, will not be in vain. In the parable of the sower, Jesus talks about growing the movement in very difficult times. He is speaking as a peasant living under occupation, when they had no freedom of speech or assembly. I think we tend to project back into that time our own situation, right? We think Jesus is out there speaking to the crowds freely, no problem. But Jesus and his followers were not citizens of the empire. They had no rights under that regime, just as Palestinians today in the occupied territories have no rights under the Israeli regime. And the ancient sources speak of what we would call secret police and informants that monitored subversive movements. This is the context in which Jesus spoke to the crowds. So Jesus speaks in coded language, parables, and he talks about secrets. He's talking about spreading the secrets of the good news of liberation in God's new society, the kingdom of heaven. God's new society that is within them and among them. He's talking about growing the movement, spreading the seeds. He says, some seed will fall along the path, and the birds will come and eat it up. Some seeds will fall on rocky ground where they do not have much soil. They will spring up quickly since there's no depth of soil, but when the sun rises, they will be scorched, and since they have no root, they will wither away. And by the way, any organizer reading this knows what Jesus is talking about. I can tell you how many times I've had people approach me with great enthusiasm about what we're doing, only to watch it fade away. Any organizer reading this would understand it. Other seed will fall among thorns, and the thorns will grow up and choke it. Other seeds, though, will fall on good soil, and it will bring forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Jesus uses the image of a supernatural bumper crop to talk about the fruits of spreading the secrets, the message of liberation in the new society. This is the image of the supernatural bumper crop. This was an image that was familiar to his audience. This images of supernatural bumper crops are found in literature of that period, and they are images of liberation from foreign empires, because the time of liberation was understood as a time of abundance. The empire would no longer be there taking their crops. A lot of taxes were paid in crops. And so it would be a time of abundance for all. So that was the image that Jesus ends the parable with, an image of abundance in the time of liberation. Jesus says, scatter the seeds, talk about these things, post about them on social media, talk with your friends, and it will bear fruit, the fruit of liberation and abundance for all. Do it in whichever way is most natural to you. Join a larger group that is spreading the message, because really this is a collective task for all of us. Do it through art, service, loving people, whatever, but spread the message. And we need to educate ourselves about these things. The more informed we are, the more we will want to talk about them. Jesus says, spread the message both about the hidden oppressions, the historic hidden oppressions, and the secret of good news. And then organize, or join people who are organizing. Here in Pasadena, we have been changing things. We used to not have much affordable housing here, but now approximately 10% of Pasadena residents live in some form of affordable housing, including some people in our congregation. Yeah, it wasn't just me. It wasn't just and a lot of this affordable housing is sprinkled throughout all those luxury apartment complexes we've seen go up in the last 10 to 20 years. A lot of that has affordable housing in it. And we got this because we organized. And people in this congregation were part of that organizing over 20 years ago. That housing that's in those units is called inclusionary housing. Our first campaign was back in 2000, 2001. We did a second campaign in 2019. It's a result of our organizing. We got rent control in 2021 because we organized. More recently this year, we got approval to use one of the closed school campuses for affordable staff housing because we organized. We got the city of Pasadena to pass a resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza because we organized. And we got Judy Chu to vote against sending arms to Israel and to call for refunding of UNRWA because we organized. We did not stay silent, we organized. So spread the word, both about the stuff that's hidden under our foundations and the wonderful secret that we have the power to change things. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, take what you see and hear and shout it from the rooftops. Talk about it with your friends and organize. With God's spirit of love and justice and compassion in us, we can bring about God's new society. So we continue with whatever's next.